We now move to the next session. I'm pleased to invite Dr. Janardan Ghosh, who is a performing artist, an academic, a theater director, film actor, playwright, performance coach, storyteller, and a lot more. Very multifaceted personality. And his research work engages with indigenous practice methods in urban spaces, exploring perspectives of history, spiritual consciousness, intertextual dialogue, and so on. Much of his past work has explored themes of spirituality, myth, etc. And he has completed his doctorate in performance and spirituality from Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda University. His work with legendary theater practitioners such as Vladimir Stanowski from Poland, Wolfgang Kolneder from Germany, Anjan Datta in India, Badal Sarkar, we all know very prominent personalities. He's a teaching and research associate with RKM Vivekananda University and creator director of OGLAM and Culture Monks. So today he will be uh, presenting on Katha'koli storytelling, locating the indigenous body by performing sensory responses to memory and ever-changing narratives. An interesting presentation. Over to Dr. Ghosh.
Om Sthapakaya च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय राम कृष्णाय ते नमः. I thank the Indica team for allowing me to present my paper here. And without much ado, I would like to share my presentation. Well, the title of my presentation is Katha'koli Storytelling, Locating the Indigenous Body by Performing the Sensorial Responses to Memory and Ever-Changing Narratives. Now, Katha'koli is a Bengali word, and so it is not the very traditional, rich classical culture that we have in India, that is Kathakali dance. So as I was saying, that Kathakoli is a Bengali word, and it is not the often heard, and we all know about Kathakali classical dance. It is formed of two words, Katha, which means word, and Koli, which means bud. So a word is in a form of a bud, and through storytelling, we help the bud to bloom. Now, in this perspective, we are going to find out that how we can locate this body inside a story, and what are the responses to our different senses, and how memory plays a role, and how this changing narratives, which Dr. Paturi had mentioned about Misra stories, where the narratives are being changing. So how do we kind of respond to that? Now, words are like bodies given to our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions. So when this particular body meets this physical body, it generates a very magical experience. And that experience can very well be termed in a baul song. I'll just sing a line of that song. Chandere gaye chandle geche, আমরা ভেবে করব কি, চাঁদের গায়ে চাঁদ লেগেছে. The moon touches the moon. What are we going to do about it? So this body, when two bodies come together, the experience is so extraordinary that we are unable to express that, what kind of an experience we are having. Similarly, when this story body meets the storyteller's body or the listener's body, the experience is very extraordinary. So with this, I think the premise is constructed that story is basically performative. Like we have heard our different speakers, that how there have been different kinds of tellers, and they are all associated with stories. So the inherent quality of story is about this, about performance. Now, this term performative is, which has been coined by a British philosopher, J.L. Austin, who says that there are certain words which itself is an action. The language becomes action, and they are known as speech acts. He gives an example that when in a church, two people are getting married, and when they are asked different questions, like whether you accept this bond, do you love him? And the answers, I do. Now, this word do is a performative word because it itself is an action. So I feel that, I think all of us, those who are into this storytelling profession, in the world of storytelling or story listening, we all accept that telling or stories are basically performative. And as scholar says that once Ruth Sawyer, a storyteller, a very renowned storyteller, British storyteller, she's saying that once the stories leave the speaker, they are almost dead. They might be imprinted on papers, they might be kind of engraved on stone plates, but still the story is almost in a dead form or in a dormant form. And it again kind of rises, and there is a resurrection when somebody tells the story. So once the uttered word leaves the storyteller, it becomes dead. So this utterance is what gives life to the story. If you look at our ancient Indian culture, it is majorly oral culture. And we know that how this sonic theology or the sound phenomena plays a very important role in our culture, in our wisdom. And we know how that sounds have brought changes. And we look forward to changes through sound. How we can kind of elevate from being a human to divine through sound. And that is why even in our breathing, we can hear the sound so hum. As you inhale, you have this sound so, and as you exhale, you have hum. So this existent itself is very sonic. We also know that the entire creation comes out of the sound. The Shabda is Brahma. And that Shabda generates the multifarious creation that we see around ourselves. So if you look at learning, which Deepaji had very well said that in her talk about listening, that how we learn through listening. Dr. Gauri Dharmapal, she's writing that we learn languages by hearing the nibhasha of mother tongue. The idiolect of the mother tongue that we hear continuously gives us the knowledge of the mother tongue. And that is how we learn the mother tongue. So this utterance, the speaking, the telling, and the listening, which both are very physical, is a part of our culture of learning and being what we are. If we look at the two greatest bodies of work that had provided us with wisdom and knowledge, they are divided into two groups, that is Shruti, and another is Smriti. Shruti that we have heard, and Smriti that we remember. So if you look into the stories, the storytelling art, you will see that it actually deals with hearing and remembering, and then telling, and again hearing, and then we again remember and we tell. So Shruti and Smriti, if you look at two different actions instead of the bodies of work, at it goes like our Vedas are the Shrutis and our Itihas Puranas, they are our Smritis. Apart from that, this entire act of hearing and remembering and then again reproducing is something that we do in our stories. So this is almost a cycle which we have also kind of heard earlier. And if we look into this great example of Kathasarit Sagar, which has already been mentioned, that it was Shiva who tells the story to Parvati, which is heard by Pushpadanta, who then again tells it to Kanabhuti, and Kanabhuti tells it to Gunadhaya, and Gunadhaya tells it to Raja Satavahana, who then kind of propagates the story to the common people. So this cycle of hearing and listening, which is a very strongly physical act, which happens in this legendary story of Katha Sagar. And if you look at the other details of Gunadhaya, when he reproduces the story, we find that he is not writing the story in any known language. He is writing the story in a language known as Paishacha. And Paishacha is a language which is mysterious. And often scholars say that it is the language of the Pishacha, which is mentioned in Panini as well as in Mahabharata. But there is a mystery. We are not very sure what kind of a language it is and what was the mode of expression. But we know that it is mentioned that Gunadhya writes with his blood. Now, this is a metaphorical expression of using the body to carry the story and then kind of retell it through the flowing blood. So the blood which stores the story is then kind of carries the story to the next speaker. So he writes it with blood, might be a metaphorical representation of carrying the story in the body. And we also know that what happens to the body which has been kind of cursed, because as we heard earlier also, if you have heard about Katha Sagar, that when Parvati was angry to know that someone else has secretly heard the story, she curses them. Now, how do they get the body back? By listening to the story again. So the kind of transformation of the body by listening to a story shows that the body somewhere affects, a body is somewhere affected or influenced by the story. If you look at other cycles, if it is Rama, Shiva is a great storyteller. Shiva tells the story again to Parvati, which is heard by Kakabhushandi, who tells it to Narada. Narada tells it to Valmiki. Valmiki teaches it to Lava and Kush, who again tells it to the protagonist, to Rama. So there is this cycle of telling, listening, telling, listening, which is almost like our existence of birth and death. Birth and death. We are growing, we are born, we are growing, again we are dying. So this cycle of existence is also a very significant pattern that we find in such kind of immortal stories. It is the same with Mahabharata. Vyasa tells it to Vaishampayana and then to Sauti, who is actually telling it to the Munis, the different Munis. So in this particular paper, what we are going to explore is where are these stories stored? Like, where do we keep these stories? How are they kind of being transferred? Like this cycle of telling and listening. What is the organic process which is involved? And how do we kind of react to the changing narratives, the Mishra stories, or even the Prakhyata stories, or the stories that are Utpadita, even kind of concocted or kind of designed. How do we kind of react to these stories? How to, and definitely in contemporary times, Katha'koli is also looking that how do we engage technology in storytelling? Because, and it is not something that is happening in contemporary times, but technology or different kind of techniques, if we call them, had been a very integral part of storytelling, as we heard about Patachitros, carvards. We will talk about that in as we progress with our presentation. So, I must kind of mention a kind of a disclaimer that this is, Katha'koli is basically a new evolving process. We are still like the kind of paper that you heard just before me, is there are a lot of scope to kind of look into it, research more about it. It is not in a full-fledged evolved form, but we are definitely taking things from different indigenous traditional art practices and trying to enrich the Katha'koli form. So we consider this body to be the repository of knowledge. And according to Shiva Puran, we have the Sthula body, the Sukshma body, and the Karana body. Sthula Sharir, Sukshma Sharir, and the Karana Sharir. The gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body. Now, in storytelling, all these three bodies are kind of used in a very interesting way. And if we look at how they are being engaged, how these different types of bodies are engaged in our storytelling, we'll find three interesting aspects, and that is smriti, the seeing aspect of it, the listening, and the use of body. Now, smriti is what is smriti? If we look at the definition of smriti, it is sanskar jyatam jnanam smriti. It is because of our sanskars which evolves when we actually engage Sriti, or we have through Sriti, we actually revisit our sanskars. And another definition of Smriti is Gyata, which has already been known to you. Gyata Vishayam Smriti. So which you have already known, that gets kind of reflected in your smriti. So it is memory in general, if we look at it. So you have to have the knowledge, and this knowledge is stored in your body. And this knowledge comes from anubhava. And anubhava, you feel through your sensory organs, which is a very carnal aspect of your being. So we'll look into this more later. And definitely the seeing part of it, different sensory organs, out of those five, if we look at the two major ones, the seeing and listening also plays a very major role. Now, if you look at the ontological or epistemological question of who actually tells the story, who is telling the story, or who is listening to this story? Now, the answer would be the body, after all, is all we have. Because if we think, according to our Indian philosophy, we can divide ourselves into two beings. One is the Purusha, or there is no vikar in that, the consciousness. And the other one is this body, the consciousness, the jada. Now, who is basically the speaker? Is the Atman speaker, or the body is the speaker? Now, according to Sankhya, it is said that we have a Brahm. We have this kind of a false knowledge that it is our Atman which is speaking, but it is not the Atman because of its bhoktritva and bhokta sambandh. We think that the Atman is speaking, but basically it is the body which is speaking. And why this body is in action? Because of our jnana ichha. And through our jnana ichha, means basically you want to know the truth. And because you want to know the truth, you actually have this ichha to do some work, that is kriti. And because of kriti, there is a cheshta. You have a cheshta. And that cheshta gives rise to our action. And that action. So in story also, that is the format, that you have this jnana, which turns into a kriti, and that gives you a rise to a cheshta, which again evolves into karma, that is karya. Now, where is cheshta lying? Where is cheshta sheltering? According to Nyaya, cheshta is in our sharira. Cheshta shreya shariram. Cheshta is sheltered in our soul. Now, we have understood that it is our body which is storing it. It is our body which is generating it. Now, if we look at how this body in the Indian tradition is storing and is generating the story. I'm just kind of quoting this Bhoja's line. I'm not reading it out. It's already there. He says that the poetic expression, there is a dramatic expression and the poetic expression. The poetic expression is far stronger than the dramatic expression because of its subtlety, because it speaks more than what the drama speaks. So then you use your body in a more poetic way. So in the Indian traditional storytelling methods, we find that the use of body is in a poetic way. It is not in a general mundane way of using the body, but in a very codified language. Grotowski, a great theater director, has mentioned about communicating through images, not through words. And this creation of images is what we actually do in our traditional storytelling practices. If in the classical practice, if you look at Bhana, as Dr. Bharada Pandey, M.L. Bharada Pandey is talking about Bhana. And when he is describing Bhana, he is saying that Bhana is the Vita who is telling the story, the comedian who is telling the story. But in his storytelling, he is using the at least the three elements of the Natya Shastra, Abhinaya of the Natya Shastra, Vachika, Sharirika, and your Satvika. The properties and the setup, the Harya is not used much, but his Angika Abhinaya is also there. Even Dr. Bhatt is talking about the Vita, using his gestures in Angika Abhinaya. In Kuttu, which is the storytelling aspect in Kudiyattam, also we find mudras being used by the performers. In Katha'koli, we find that use of hands, use of legs, the toes, the position, the balance. Somebody I found that asked a question that how is rasa generated while telling stories? If you use your mudra, there also you can kind of generate rasa, as Nandikeshwara says, that when you move your hands, your eyes follow it. When your eyes are following, when your eyes are there, it is being followed by your thoughts. And where your thoughts are, that is being followed by your feelings. And where your feelings are, there is rasa. Nandikeshwara is talking about that. So through mudras, and as you have also heard about Pandevani, Tijanbai, which was again adopted by one of our greatest theater actors who started doing storytelling. Her name is Shauli Mitra, recently passed, wonderful performer. She uses a lot of gestures in her storytelling. So gesticulation is very important. Shiv Kumarji, how many minutes more? I know your presence gives me an indication. So can I just use another 2-3 minutes? Audio.
Another 2 minutes, Dr.
Okay. I will just go a little bit faster because I wanted to show a video of Katha'koli performances. So what about body in the virtual space? Now, we heard about Pottochitro, the cowards. We have seen our, those panels that has been prepared by Indica, where you have these cowards, where another parallel body starts existing with the storyteller. Like the storyteller is having another parallel body. In Chitrakatha also, the scroll or the coward, they are different bodies which are being used by the storyteller. So this particular space, which was earlier in our tradition, is now being used in technology as a virtual space. We find it in our internet, in projections. We are using the virtual body, which itself has its own existence. And these bodies are augmenting the stories. They are in a way helping us to kind of develop the story further. And because these bodies are just not identities, they are actually providing us a connectivity. It acts as an interface. So we can talk more about these transmedia storytelling, where we use media for storytelling, which has been used in our traditional art. Finally, I would like to say, what is the purpose of using this body? Actually, if we consider it a cosmic structure, the story is the cosmic whole. And we as a storyteller and story listener are inside the story, immersed in the story. So then, how do we use our sensory organs? Is it only through our eyes, or physical body, or physical ears? It is not that. If we hear a Japanese practitioner known as Zyami, he says that we don't see only with our eyes, we also see it with our hridaya, that is our heart, that is hridaya chakshu. We can see it all around. So as a storyteller, we need to develop this hridaya chakshu, through which we can see behind us, side, all the way. And also we can hear the sound that is not being uttered. The anahata sound is also being told. So Katha'koli is basically trying to adopt these theoretical perspectives and develop a new form of storytelling, which is very much based on Raganuga Bhakti Sadhana, which has been kind of propagated by Rupa Goswami, where you actually enter the story to have salvation. And here, as in bhakti, the sadhya and the sadhana are the same. Bhakti is the sadhana, bhakti is the process. Here also, the story is the sadhana and story is the process. And in Raganuga sadhana, you go through this process of anubhava, by kind of feeling the story, carnally feeling the story, and creating a sanskar in you, and then using your smriti to retell the story, to regenerate the story. So there is the process of shravana, listening to the story, repeating of the story, kirtana, and then depicting the story in your body. So in Raganuga sadhana, what we happen is the devotees basically enter the story of Bhagavatam, playing different characters. Similarly, as I have been talking about entering the story with your body inside the story, and then ultimately have the Siddha Rupa, that is the purified self, the causal body. You touch that body. So this is what Katha'koli is trying to do. And I am just going to show you 1 minute of a video. It will just take a second. 1 minute of a video. 1 minute of our Katha'koli performance.
I was moved into a eagerness state. My identified body consciousness disappeared, and I moved into a bodiless freedom, and I saw a vision.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghosh. I think it was a mesmerizing and fascinating presentation. Just like you said that the bhakti is the sadhya and the bhakti is the sadhana, that experience one got in this very presentation itself.
Many pranams to Dr. Janardan Ghosh. Where were you, all these treasures? Where did we miss all of you?
Sir, I'm so happy to talk to you also. I was talking to our Pro Chancellor Maharaj, and he was talking so good about you, and he was telling. So I'm hoping to meet you, sir. There are a lot of things that I would like to learn from you, sir.
Yes, you. Every paper in this conference is such a gem, but the exuberance of happiness reached its zenith with your paper, Dr. Ghosh. Oh God, we need you. We need you very much. You have to be with us with Indic Academy. This is the kind of work that we are looking for. And founder Harikiranji has asked me to ask all of you people to be promised that whatever you need to take this work forward, Indic Academy promises you to give that.
Thank you so much.
Please take it forward. Firstly, it will be published in our Indic Today magazine. And then it will be published as a collected papers volume. But the level of your work, it should see the entire academic world should know how such a depth of Indic theory, completely immersed in Indic roots, is coming up about this area called storytelling. The world should know. Please, Dr. Ghosh, please don't remain in RKM very alone. from RKM it has to reach the entire globe.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
sir.
very much for coming.
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging words. Thank you so much. I would definitely be a part of it, sir. It's my honor to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. I think Dr. Nagraj Garu just summarized the intensity of what many of us would have felt in this presentation.